All right, hello and welcome to this probate roadmap overview video. And my goal is to keep this just over 5 minutes, short and sweet. I want to give you an overview of what this roadmap is going to look like. So Stephen Howell here, my friends. Hope you're doing awesome today. With this roadmap, we are not going to dive into exactly what is probate and give you an entire full-blown education. That is a trap. You are obviously going to learn what probate is over time, but you could take two people. One person could read 1,000,000 books on probate, understand what an executor is, last will and testament, and every probate terminology, and take a crash course and take an education program for 6 months, learning all about probate. And the other person can understand a higher level of it, can begin marketing, understanding what the people that are going through this are experiencing, how to speak with them, how to solve their problems, how to provide value. And person B in this example is off doing probate deals, generating profit in their real estate business, while the other person is still trying to get an education. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with having that extra hunger and having extra knowledge. And in fact, in the resources section, I have two wonderful probate books that will give you, that I recommend that you can go buy today on Amazon. And they're both, short books that can be read in under a week each. And that'll give you a plethora of knowledge about probate. So I just want to make that clear because that is a powerful lesson in and of itself. With that being said, guys, let's dive into the probate overview. So why I love this roadmap. Probate, for me personally, has been one of my if not my number one lead source of deals. I've probably done more probate deals than any other type of deal over the last 10 years. It has just been old Mr. Reliable for me. Probate is a wonderful lead source. It has been consistent, and the beautiful part, and I don't have it as one of the bullet points here, but you could put it as the first bullet point, is it is Mr. or Mrs. Reliable. It hasn't changed a lot over the last 11 years or so since I started to implement probate, the last 11 or 12 years. And it's just consistent. So probate is essentially inherited houses. It's, when somebody passes away and they leave a property, it goes through probate. If it's not in a trust, it goes into probate. And then whether it's, a family member, son or daughter, brother, sister, or somebody appointed by the family is appointed as executor or personal representative or administrator to handle that estate. And typically one of the biggest things in the estate is the real estate. And then there's an attorney that's appointed as well to that process. And, since COVID hit and all of those things, the probate process can be take a little longer and all of those things. Do not let that scare you away. There is a lot of misconceptions about probate, and that's why I love this niche lead source. So when we think about focusing as a roadmap on probate, just know simply that it's inherited houses. 80% of the probate cases in your market will sell within the next 90 days, okay? And they're either going to sell to a realtor or they're either going to sell to a cash investor, a house buyer. Now, there's a small percentage of the time where they might do a for sale by owner or something like that. But generally speaking, they're either going to list it with a realtor, put it on the MLS, or they're going to sell it as is to a cash investor. 80% of the time, this is going to happen. So if you're not marketing to these, you're leaving money on the table. Now, the other thing, and I used to have all the statistics of the trillions of dollars, and I don't want to bore you with all that right now, but just know that there's a huge boom with this. There is a monumental shift of wealth occurring in the country right now with the baby boomer generation passing away. All of their assets, all of their real estate, all of their property are then, being distributed to the heirs as one generation passes to the next. And, as we've seen our country expand, over the last 50, 60 years in real estate and communities and suburbs and the boom and the growth, the folks that were a part of that are now passing and leaving these properties behind to the heirs. And one of the things that makes this such a great niche lead source is that these homes are usually very outdated. They've been lived in by uncle or aunt or grandmother or, grandfather or father or mother or whoever for the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. They're usually very outdated. Sometimes that relative was a hoarder and there's stuff stacked to the ceilings, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of solving a problem and being a house buyer and wanting to buy deeply discounted real estate or wholesale deeply discounted real estate, usually there needs to be some sort of distress in the property itself or a distress situation, right? Those are the two things we look for that allow us to get a deeply discounted deal. And one of the things that's nice about probate is a lot of times there's both. It's a distressed situation, and it's a distressed property. And when I say distressed situation, there's a problem to solve. There's help that needs to be had there, and that's where we come in. What I also like about this lead source, it's a lower quantity of leads. So given whether you're doing this virtually in a market, if you live in a small town in the middle of North Dakota and you're like, I don't want to invest here, I want to, go to a bigger city, and you're virtually doing it, or if, whatever your target market is, whatever your main market is, I do probate in 5 counties, okay? And to give you an idea, out of those 5 counties, I roughly get about 50 probate leads per week, okay? So it's about 200 leads or opportunities or prospects or whatever you want to say. It's not even really leads. It's 200 opportunities per month. Well, over the course of a year, that's 2,400 opportunities, but that's very different than if we're sending out 10,000 postcards a month, or if we're cold calling and we're dialing 5,000 records a month. 200 records a month is much more manageable, 50 records a week. Now, when I first started this years ago, over a decade ago, my minimum number was around 25 to 30 leads a week, or opportunities a week, so roughly around 100 records a month. So from that perspective, I love it because it allows you to go deep rather than wide. And there's just so many ways to work these probate leads, which allows us to kind of, hit it from multiple angles and allows us to be very successful and really help and all of those things. So it's just it's a lower overhead. It's lower amount of data that you have to keep track of. Okay, it doesn't mean there's still not logistics and organization and things like that, but it's very manageable. The amount of time it takes to work this lead source, because we're so focused, so niched down, it takes less time to work these leads too, which I like. You can really do all of your probate marketing in about 15 to 20 hours a week, sometimes less, 10 or 12 hours. And that is very nice as well. Like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions like, oh my goodness, if probate takes 6 to 9 months, or with COVID even longer, oh my goodness, Stephen, I don't want to wait a year to get paid. Well, when these probates are released, and you're getting your probate records every single week, some of them are going to want to sell right now. Some of them are going to want to sell a few weeks from now, and some of them are going to want to sell 90 to 120 days from now. But again, back to bullet point number 2, 80% of them are going to sell within the next 90 to 100. I should have put 120 days. But relatively soon they're going to be selling, and they're going to be at all different increments. So, and there's just a lot of other misconceptions around probate that, and just terminologies and just different things that, people might dabble with it or hear about it or try. And then, they just don't have that full perspective. And so people are like, I'll try another lead source. I'll try something else. The other thing I could have put in here as a bullet point is just, being in this industry the last 12 or so years, I've been fortunate to network with a lot of the 7-figure operators around the country, a lot of big businesses, and just time and time again, probate is one of their very top and most favorite lead sources. Because again, it checks the box of distressed property, distressed situation, motivated situations. and for all of the reasons that I'm mentioning here. So it's always in, amongst the top lead sources or lead types of, of all these, the operators that I'm speaking about around the country. And so that's just further confirmation of what I know to be true, but I just want to share that with you. A lot of times the family that inherits the property, they can live out of town or out of state. They didn't live in this property themselves, blood, sweat, and tears for 10, 15, 20, 30 years to pay down the mortgage. A lot of these, there's usually not a mortgage. I skipped over that bullet point. So, it's not like it's a $250,000 house that there's a $225,000 mortgage. A lot of times there's no mortgage at all, or maybe the person who passed away took out like a second mortgage, or there's like medical debt or something of like 20 or 30,000, but it's like, okay, the property's worth 250 and the house is super, super dated and the family lives out of town and they still are motivated to sell. And there's just a huge opportunity to help and serve people. People that are going through this are in a stressful situation. They have their own life. They have their own responsibilities. And now they're thrust into this situation. Maybe they live out of town or out of state. The house needs so much work. There's a million boxes everywhere. And there's just a lot of ways that we can come in, add value. And we're never aggressive with this. We're never trying to talk people into things. If the house is in beautiful shape and the person isn't in any rush to sell, we may point them and say, hey, you might be better off listing it with a realtor in this situation. We're always wanting to serve people and do right by them. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful lead source, that has been a reliable thing. And there's multiple ways to work these leads, right? Like, there's an executor, administrator, or personal representative, and those terms are kind of interchangeable depending on where you live in the country. Basically, the family member or whoever's been appointed. Sometimes it's an attorney. Sometimes it's like a third-party fiduciary that's kind of leading the decision. And then let's say if it's a brother, he may be the oldest brother, but then he may have a few beneficiaries, a few other siblings that he's consulting. So we have an opportunity to send out letters and postcards to the personal representative, but there's also attorneys that are in charge of these estates, kind of as a third party as well. And so we can email them, we can send them a letter, we can give them a quick phone call. And some of these attorneys, they work 30 or 40 probate cases a year. So like in my market, there is 268 probate attorneys. And it's like, oh my goodness, like what if we call all of them, and that's part of the process that we will go into. What if we hit it off with 5 or 10 of these attorneys and they refer us one deal a year? And I'm trying to be super conservative here. And let's say each of those deals are, $20,000. Well, that adds an extra $100,000 to our bottom line. This is very niched focus, and there's a larger spread on these deals. So if you're in a market where like the average deal is like 10K, let's say, by focusing on probate and just the nature of the situation here, a lot of times we're going to be able to make that average be around 15 to 18 or 20K because of the situation and just the house is so dated and things like that. These tend to be larger spread deals. So for all of these reasons here and many more, that's what it's looking like with probate. Now, with probate, we're able to get the records from the county or a third-party provider. We seek to get those leads every single week. So if we're looking at 200 leads or 100 leads, whatever it is on a monthly basis, we do these by the county, typically in most areas in the country. And a lot of times we'll start with 1 or 2 counties. And then like I did, because I'm in a smaller market, I expanded to 5 counties, which nets me 50 opportunities a week, 200 a month. And we're simply sending out letters to the executors and letters to the attorneys. And then we are emailing the attorneys, calling the attorneys, and also calling and texting and leaving voicemails with the executors. And we are rinsing and repeating that process. And then as this list builds, we will take a list of all of our probates over the last 6 to 12 months and make sure, in addition to the initial letter they received, we will make sure they get a postcard, a simple probate postcard from us, handwritten postcard about every 60 days so we can stir the pot, stay top of mind, and that creates a lot of extra business. So it's a very repeatable process, and that's what we're going to be doing. The other thing that I like about probate in terms of the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively low cost on a monthly basis. There are ways to outsource some things, but it is a wonderful lead source, to market to, and it's relatively low cost. Now, when we add in the postcards every 60 or 90 days to all of our probate files over the last 6 to 12 months, that increases the cost. Instead of going to the courthouse ourselves, which we can do, and or get them online on the computer, there are opportunities to get the leads from a third-party provider, or train a virtual assistant, to access them online and deliver them to us every week. And some of those things, are able to save us a lot of time so we can spend our time talking to these folks and getting deals and going on appointments. And then sometimes there's family members, friends, or an employee that you can hire to stuff and stamp the first letters that we send out, not the postcards. Those go out from a mail company. So costs can increase as you start to outsource certain things, but even with all of that, and we'll get into that in the next video, it's still relatively low cost to focus on this. And we'll get into the amount of deals that this can produce on a monthly basis, but it is a great lead source. So if this video has intrigued you, what I want you to do right after this video is just dive into the assessment video or videos, and it may be 1, 2, or hopefully no more than 3 videos where I'm going to go into more details into the cost, the raw materials, the marketing method, the amount of deals it can produce, the speed to deals, scalability, delegation ability, the skill set that is good to have with this, the amount of time per week, and retouching on the commitment. And then after that, if this is a marketing roadmap that you choose to implement and execute with your blinders on, then the following videos, so right after this is the assessment video where I talk about these items, and it may be 1 or 2 videos. Then after that, the remaining videos will be how to implement the roadmap. So this wraps up the overview video for probate. So I've enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I will see you in the next video.